welcome to this episode of the International Daily Roundup. For our first story, we're looking at the elections in Bolivia. Ex-Finance Minister Luis Arce will be the presidential candidate for the Movement of Socialism, which is MAS, and David Choquehuanca as his running mate for the May 3rd presidential election in Bolivia. This was announced yesterday in Argentina by ex-President Evo Morales, who has now been appointed as the head of the MAS campaign team after the declaration of the elections. To discuss more about this, we have with us Abdul. Abdul, welcome to the show. Very important question is that why is this election happening?
As we all know, there was an election in last October in which Evo Morales was clear winner. But the opposition in Bolivia basically did not recognize the results, and they were demanding his resignation, complaining that there were basically the problems with the election process. They were getting support, external support, and because of that, the police and the armed personals in Bolivia came against Evo Morales. Because of that, Evo Morales had to resign, and he had to flee the country. He went to Mexico. After that Mexico, he went to Argentina. Now he is living in Argentina in exile. So primarily these elections are happening because of the failure of the first elections and the coup which was done against Evo Morales.
And what about the candidates that we see currently? Of course, Morales is supporting these candidates. He is their campaign manager. So what kind of candidates do we see in the upcoming election?
Movement towards socialism or movement for socialism, which is the party of Evo Morales, is mostly rooted among the indigenous people in Bolivia. This time, for last 3 terms, Morales was winning. Basically, 4th term also he won. But because it is said that his party was considered to be losing support among the middle classes, the urban middle classes in Bolivia, which has also grown in strength because of the economic developments which have happened under Morales' rule in last 14 years roughly. So these candidates, the Luis Arce and Choquehuanca, are primarily made candidates for creating a combination between the middle classes and the indigenous population in the country. As you rightly pointed out, Arce was the finance minister under Morales, and he was considered to be the architect of the economic growth and revival of the country in last 14 years. Choquehuanca was also one of the ministers in Morales' cabinet. He was the foreign minister. Apart from that, he is considered to be a big leader of ALBA movement. He was head of the ALBA movement, which has very deep roots among the indigenous population in Bolivia. So given the combination of these two leaders, but basically the overall constituency in Bolivia, basically there is an attempt to cover them.
Okay. Thank you, Abdul, for this insight. We will be keeping a very close eye on the elections in Bolivia. Now, moving on to our next story, 80 Hadi loyalist soldiers were killed in a Yemen attack. On January 18th, which was Saturday, more than 80 soldiers which were aligned with the former Yemeni president, Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi, were killed in a drone and a missile attack on a military training camp in the country's Marib province. According to the health authorities, at least 100 were wounded in the attack on the camp, which is about 170 kilometers east of the capital, Sana'a. In a statement, Hadi blamed the Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthi forces, for carrying out the bombing as a revenge against the killing of the Iranian Quds Force General Qasem Soleimani in Iraq by the United States. The Houthis did not immediately claim responsibility for Saturday's attack. The attack on the military training camp followed very serious ground-level assaults by Hadi forces on the Houthi targets, which are based in the east of Sana'a. Hadi was overthrown in 2015 when Houthi forces seized a large part of the country, including the capital Sana'a. He was forced into exile in Saudi Arabia, and Houthis go on to claim that Hadi was overthrown because of his corrupt regime. Since 2015, Yemen is witnessing a brutal international war with the Hadi forces, backed by Saudi Arabia, the US, United Kingdom and France, which is the international coalition, and it is launching violent airstrikes and ground assaults against the Houthi forces. The international coalition has also been accused of war crimes in Yemen. The relentless airstrikes by them targeting civilian infrastructure like hospitals, water sanitation plants, and residential areas has led to grave humanitarian crisis in the country. According to reports, the airstrikes and bombings by the coalition have killed more than 8,000 civilians in Yemen since 2015, with millions on the verge of starvation and disease, leading the UN to call it the greatest humanitarian crisis of the century. And we'll be following this story as well. For our stories and our videos, please log on to our website www.peoplesdispatch.org. For today, that's all that we have for you on this episode of the International Roundup. Thank you for watching.
De pie cantar que vamos a triunfar, avanza ya.